Welcome to Design is Marketing, a podcast for product teams and marketers who want to learn what works and what doesn't when it comes to engaging and converting users. This podcast is brought to you by Sparkr, the design agency. If you want to know more about it, check sparkr.co. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Design is Marketing. I'm your host, Federico, and today we're going to dive deep into gamification. We will learn how to successfully apply it to increase the engagement of your product or service. Now, the problem with gamification is that most companies see it as just badges and leaderboard. What we're going to see today is that gamification is actually much more than that. And if you think of only badges and leaderboard, well, you're actually leaving on the table around 90% of successful gamification techniques. But before we start, what is gamification? Gamification is a technique which is often used in order to increase the engagement and successful conversion towards certain actions that you want users to take. So, for example, if you think of e-learning and course creation, that's obviously a process that requires users to continuously engage with what you're offering. So you want to be able to generate something like a habit, right, that makes them come back and consume more of your product or engage more with your learning material so that they can progress towards their learning goal. Now, gamification uses a lot of techniques that come from gaming to make sure that the journey that you offer to users keep being fun and motivating. So the whole idea of gamification is really to start from creating something that is centered around users as opposed to the function. What I mean by that is that when you start from function, actually your goal is to make sure that users progress towards the end goal as fast as efficiently as possible. Well, with gamification, it's not really like that. Sometimes the fastest journey possible is not also the most engaging. So the whole idea behind gamification is not just to make the journey fast and efficient, but also engaging. And sometimes, counterintuitively, something a little bit longer can actually be more engaging. If you think of the whole IKEA effect, well, that's exactly what I mean. Now, gamification revolves around 8 main pillars. The first one that you want to explore is to provide to your users not just a plain and simple functional journey in your product, so you have to do this and this and that, but add something meaningful to that journey. So think, for example, of the sense of calling or the sense of being part of a very limited elite of people that get to do something. Important here is a strong narrative that comes together with the journey that you're offering to your user. The second pillar of gamification is the sense of accomplishment. And here is exactly where things such as badges and leaderboard come into play. But then again, don't think only of that. Think of a genuine feeling of accomplishment, of having learned something and being able to, do something or master a skill that you didn't have before you started. What is important here is that you strengthen that sense of accomplishment with something tangible, something concrete. It can be, for example, points, it can be a progress bar, but it can also just be a phrase that's strengthening the user the fact that they are now able to do something they weren't able to do before they started. The third pillar that you want to explore when it comes to gamification is help the users feel part of a creative process. That means that users tend to be more engaged when they feel that they have contributed to the end creation of what they're using. Well, we all have memories, for example, from our childhood from Lego. What was fun about that is that you couldn't just assemble in only one way, but in every way you wanted. And it's a little bit the same when you think of, for example, things like dashboard creation, where as a user, you can customize the way in which you see your dashboard. That tends to be so much more engaging than just a plain and simple dashboard that has been given to you once and for all. The fourth driver is ownership. This is really where users feel engaged because they have accumulated something. This is quite straightforward. Think of things, for example, like accumulation of wealth or digital coins within products like apps or games. The same thing is also, for example, when you spend time by customizing certain things like your avatar or your profile, or accumulating things like missing pieces. Drive number 5, it's related to social influence and building relationship. So everything that really appeals to our human sense of being helpful to someone, being a guidance for someone, or creating genuinely durable links with other human beings. Pillar number 6 is scarcity. This is also a well-known drive and well-studied one. However, not always it's implemented the right way. Scarcity is often seen when, for example, you can only do a certain number of actions within a day, or you need certain things like, for example, a coin or a card in order to be able to accomplish a specific action. So that means that basically you cannot do that action more than a certain number of times per day, or you need to buy more of the enabler in order to accomplish what you wanted to do. You can think of scarcity also with things like visiting only a certain number of profiles on websites like LinkedIn. Pillar number 7 is unpredictability of the reward. It's actually quite a fun one, and that means that when the reward or the outcome of an action is unpredictable for us as human beings, it actually makes us feel more excited about it, and so we are more inclined to do that specific action. That was largely used by Facebook when, for example, they introduced many years ago their notification system, so that you had a notification, you knew that there was something for you, but you didn't know exactly what happened. Well, it is proof that that motivates us more rather than knowing immediately what is the outcome of the action, or, for example, the exact content of the notification. So unpredictability is a very powerful drive. Pillar number 8, the last one, it's about loss avoidance. So it's about motivating us to do something in order to avoid a negative action. It's something that you see quite a lot, for example, in games that trigger you to do something, because otherwise you might lose your progress, you might lose what you have learned. It was infamously used also by a company that some of you will remember, Tamagotchi. If you didn't feed your dog or pet, whatever it was, then it would have died. Actually, that caused a lot of stress to children. So loss aversion can also be a very powerful trigger, but it's important not to abuse it. When it comes to these 8 pillars that we have seen, you can kind of divide them into good ones and bad ones, like white hat motivations and black hat motivations. So white hat techniques are the ones that drive engagement up and also make users feel good. Whereas with black hat techniques, you will probably also have very positive results, but it's not necessarily related to making users feel good about what they're doing. Now let's have a look at 2 examples taken from real life on how successful companies use gamification to engage their users and create a wider user base. The first company that I wanted to mention to you is LinkedIn. Yes, LinkedIn uses gamification as well. And what you can see is that they use gamification in very different ways, combining white hat techniques with black hat techniques. Well, the very first one that comes to our mind is, right, building social connections. So on LinkedIn, what's interesting is that you can build social connection both with people that are already part of your network, but also with people that are not part of your network. And that appeals to another pillar, which is loss aversion, because by building connection with other people that, for example, could offer you a job opportunity or a business opportunity, that way you also have the chance to not lose these business opportunities or career opportunities. LinkedIn has sense of accomplishment as well. They have introduced progress bar to show how complete your profile is and how your profile would be looked by other people, so that you can proudly announce to people what you can do, what you can master. Recently, they've even introduced these things like you can be top 1% voice in a specific area. And that's also a way to showcase your mastery in a specific area. The last thing that LinkedIn masters is really the scarcity, so that there is certain things that you can do, but not every action is unlimited. So for example, things like visiting profiles or seeing people that are often seen in relationship to a person that you whose profile you have seen, that's something that is all related to a sense of scarcity. So by combining these different techniques, as you can see, LinkedIn has been able to create a platform that is not only very engaging, but also very successful. The second company that I want to analyze together with you is Duolingo. Duolingo have managed to create a very successful gamification program. And then again, what they have done is successfully combine most of the elements that we have analyzed together. They have probably been the first company to successfully introduce badges and leaderboard as associated to courses and the learning of a new language. But they haven't just done only that. What's powerful about Duolingo is that they have gamified the whole experience of learning a new language by, first of all, helping you to showcase what you have learned. The second thing that they have done is to break down your learning program into steps that are extremely easable for everyone to achieve. So whereas traditional language courses, they had units and they had steps where they were sometimes very long, like think, for example, of a year of learning broken into lessons of 1 hour per week. What Duolingo have done is to break this down into a few minutes per day. And by that, they have increased a lot the sense of accomplishment, because every day with Duolingo, it feels like you are accomplishing something new that you didn't have the day before. The very last thing that Duolingo has done in a very successful way is to actually gamify gamification, so that learning a new language doesn't become anymore an activity related to something functional, but it's also a game in itself. And that's how Duolingo has successfully triggered a lot of people to take their first steps into new languages that they would have never explored before. And that's very interesting, because this way they have done really what we said at the beginning. They have decoupled the learning experience from just I need it to I want to do it because it's fun. And if you do it because it's fun, it doesn't really matter to what level you get. You can also just try something and then see where you go. So here you have it. Today we have explored together 8 successful gamification techniques. If you want to know more about it, feel free to leave a comment below. I will send to you a link where you can have access to an article that I've written that explains each one of these pillars more in depth. Thanks a lot for joining this episode, and if you liked it, don't forget to like or subscribe on any platform on which you're following us. Bye!